Hey, what's up? I'm former Bills receiver Stevie Johnson, and you listening to Nate and the fellas on the Circling the Wagons podcast. It's only one way to roll. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Go Bills, baby.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo. Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo.
The Bills make me wanna shout.
Welcome to the Circling the Wagons podcast, a podcast discussing the Bills all year round with interviews, news, recaps, and insightful fan discussion. Most times. Here's your host and lifelong Bills fan, Nate.
What a joke.
Yes, I am done with this team. I'm reading the tweets.
They had it won?
Yeah, well, fuck that. Like, that's not the reason they lost.
No.
I feel really bad for Taron Johnson. He's not the reason they lost. Defense, MVP, all around. Offense and special teams, sucks, all around. There needs to be significant changes.
What needs to be changed, though? What's going to change? What's going to be different?
Offensive coordinator is one of them.
But it wasn't Ken Dorsey's fault tonight. This was not Ken Dorsey's fault.
Special teams coordinator is another one.
Those 4 turnovers, you can't blame on Ken Dorsey, though. And that's the issues they've been having all season. It's just turning the ball over and just not being able to.
But they can't sustain drives either, though.
That also, but it's not all on Dorsey, I guess, is what I'm saying. Did you see that? Did you hear them say at the end that the Bills haven't been 500 since Josh Allen's rookie season, this far into the season?
Yeah.
Dude, this team is why, like, let's say we lived healthy lives. We would normally live to like 85, 90 maybe. Like, this team is the reason why we won't make it past 70. This specific.
With my luck, they'll win the Super Bowl when I would have been 71.
We'll kick it, and then all of a sudden they'll have that Super Bowl parade, right?
No, I still think Dorsey's the biggest issue on the entire organization.
Agreed.
I'm not saying there's not other issues, right? That one Allen interception was terrible. He fumbled the handoff. The other interception went through the receiver's hands into the interception. Like, Cook fumbled it like 3 times or 2 times. He got one of them back. You're muted.
Said he got lucky on that one, but that's where their luck ended.
No, it's the offense and special teams. That's the issue. And it has been, right?
Special teams sucks.
Since after the week 4. Since after the Dolphins game.
They can't do anything to return the ball or have any good returns, and then they let the other team return the ball very easily and get great field position. At one point they were saying that the Broncos' average drive start was on their own 42-yard line. And that wasn't all special teams, but a good chunk of it was.
Yeah.
Hey, so you were saying, like, blame on Dorsey. So, like, with Josh Allen, like, I mean, he definitely deserves some of the blame, but I feel like some of that blame.
No. I mean, for this particular game, the entire offense is at fault.
Mm-hmm.
And the special teams, right?
Yeah.
Very few shining lights there, right? I mean, Cook ran it well when he didn't fumble it, right?
Yeah.
And Reed Ferguson made a great play, but like, why are they celebrating so hard when like the guy returned it so? Like, I don't understand. I get that the long snapper and the kicker don't get to make tackles very often, but like, that's not really celebration worthy, I don't think, right? Like, when they already returned it so far.
Yeah, great hit. Now it was like 25 yards after he caught it. Great.
Yeah, who cares?
Who gives a shit?
Meanwhile, the defense, who was down 5 starters, and the offense had 4 turnovers, plus a turnover on downs at midfield, they played amazing. I really hope Taron Johnson doesn't, like, blame himself for this, because, no.
I was seeing something in particular that Taron Johnson played, John, where it was like, that sort of play shouldn't be rewarded to the offense, an underthrown ball like that, and like, because that's essentially what happened. It was defensive pass interference because the ball was so underthrown that Judy had to come back for it, so then he couldn't get to the ball because Taron Johnson was in his way. So I get that why it's called pass interference. The thing
it was the right call.
It was right.
Yeah.
You got to he did turn around though. That's where it gets kind of iffy. Is like he did turn around, but by the time he turned around, he was it was too late for him.
But these things, right? Like that play and like the 12 men at the end of the
12 men.
None of that should have mattered. They should have lost anyway. Like,
dude, wasn't the 12 men the icing on the cake though? Like the 12 men on the field to stop that missed field goal. The Bills had it won. The Bills won this game, and
yeah, but I mean, we were talking about this yesterday, right? Like there's a really good possibility that we're going to win this game.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the season will be over, and it kind of is, right? Even if they won, right? Let's say miss the field goal, right?
Yeah.
What are they going to do? They got the Jets, who they already lost to, and then at the Eagles, and then at the Chiefs, right? They play some other team I'm not going to mention, and then they play the Chargers in Los Angeles, right? And then they play the Patriots, who they lost to, and then they're in Miami.
I'm trying to get to the.
Maybe they win only one more game. Then what's going to happen?
Yep. I'm trying to find this playoff simulator. The Bills 5-4 make playoffs, win division, dropping their chances of making the playoffs to 36%. The Bills dropped their chances of making the playoffs to 36% after the Bengals loss. What do you think it is now?
15.
Time to start tanking, man. It's time to start just like, you know what I don't want? I don't want the Bills to all of a sudden come to life like they're this amazing team. Like they just, I don't want that to happen. I don't want them to all of a sudden find their way on offense and then go 9-8. I don't want that.
I mean, if they did, that's still encouraging for future years, right? It's just that, like right now, we want significant change, right? We want like somebody to be fired or some major change in philosophy. But if it all of a sudden starts clicking, then it's a different story. But look, we've been waiting since like the last 5 weeks have been terrible. So we've been waiting this long for it, and it hasn't happened. It's like, oh, they'll make second half adjustments. Well, they haven't made any adjustments the last 4 or 5 weeks. Like, what second half adjustments are they going to make now, right?
Yeah, we get into each game, and I'm like, this is the game where they turn it around offensively, where they limit the mistakes, where they actually come out on fire. And it's just another game where they make turnovers, dumb decisions, 3-and-outs. They just can't get out of their own way.
All these shotgun plays are killing me. Why do they keep doing that?
4th and 2 shotgun. What? Why?
Yeah. They went for the 2 points on the 1 yard line. They made it, and they did the shotgun play and everything. But I was like, oh my god, why are they doing this again? Like, I didn't like the play call. I like that they somehow got it, but like that one play later in the game where it looked like they actually did a play action play and had a big gain to Gabe Davis. I'm like, oh my god, they just did a play action. That's what they're good at. Like, why don't they do that more? Motion. They need more motion.
I was just about to say that. I don't understand why the Bills haven't figured that they should. Like Dan Orlovsky tweeted that. He's like, for God's sake, please, for the love of all that's holy, try to do that. Try to do a little bit of motion to help the offense out in some way, shape, or form against this defense. Anything you can do to help the offense. The Bills are like, nah. Why would we do that? Why would we start doing something different that could help us? Mike, what's going on?
What is up?
So we've been
been
just kind of riffing for the last 10 minutes or so about this Bills loss against the Broncos, 24-22. Just right after the game, reactions to this. Real quick, this episode is brought to you by the Twinspire Sportsbook at Delago, at the Delago Resort and Casino in Waterloo, New York. The Bills had the game won at the end of the game. The Broncos missed a field goal. They'd already botched 2 extra points, but that wasn't enough for the Bills. They had 12 men on the field. Didn't that just feel like when that happened, I was just like, that's funny. I wasn't even angry. I was kind of angry, obviously, but I was just like, are you kidding?
You were transported to 20 years ago.
Oh, this feels oddly comfortable.
A warm blanket.
It's more like
going home.
It's like a warm, you felt like, oh, this is familiar. It's almost, but it doesn't feel great. It feels like a weird comfort, like when you sit on a toilet seat of someone that's just been on it and it's all warm and you're like, this feels good, but it doesn't at all. It feels comfortable and warm. Yeah. I know I used that one recently, but okay, it wasn't that bad. But yeah, it was
Oh, I'm trying to think. What year took you back to 2003? Anxiety-riddled Nate?
No, anxiety-riddled Nate has not gone away. He's just taken an older form.
He just realizes he has less time that he has to deal with it. I think, like, if I have to put a positive spin on it, and very fluky. So many, like, oh my gosh, that first Broncos touchdown, like, it was an Amazon game, but the Amazon chance of completion on that play, what would have been? That was insane. Oh my gosh, just ridiculous. And then
insanely terrible for us.
The turnovers. The turnovers.
There was 4, and then there was another one on downs.
I'm not saying the Bills deserve to win, but they deserve to lose that game. But you play it 50 times, it felt like the Bills would win 40.
Yeah, but I feel like this is kind of how this season's been, though. Ever since the Dolphins game, it's been like this type of game. I haven't even been keeping track of how many points the Bills have lost by, but I feel like it's been a touchdown or less in every single loss that they've had for the most part, and it's just they can't get out of their own way.
But, but they got to regress to the mean on some of these fluky things, don't we? How did you feel about Cook? Like, when they took Cook out after the fumble, I'm a little bit like, that feels like Bill Belichick. Like, you're taking very vindictive on the dude. Like, I'd rather like leave him in, show confidence, like just feed him, live and die. But then how he kept fumbling, like, maybe McDermott knows.
Why did McDermott let him back into the game? Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
It was like definitely like a fumble right when he got back, right?
We could have easily not.
I don't know if that's on him or Allen or both of them. And then the long run that like a miracle came down and it bounced right back into his hand.
Just I could see, I can see both ways on that. Like, I mean, as soon as they pulled Cook, Latavius Murray had a couple of great runs, but then like obviously that kind of waned, so they had to bring Cook back. I mean, it's not like his rookie year where, like, remember his first carry
ever.
Whole career was a fumble. Uh-huh. He's one of your more dynamic players on offense. You have to play him. So, I mean, what are you going to do? The one was, I think, on Allen. The handoff.
The handoff was. Were you counting that one too, Mike? The handoff, botched handoff.
I think it was more on Allen. It could have been a combination.
Cook wasn't looking.
Could have been a combination.
Well, I think he was expecting it up high, and if you look at the replay, Allen, it was already dropping by the time Allen was trying to give it to him because he botched the handoff portion of it. So he's like, he lost grip of it or something. I think that's how that happened. But even so, you're right, John. I think he's one of your more dynamic players. I think I come out on both sides because it's like you have to sit him down. Maybe he's not in the right headspace. You want to put him back out there so that he could fumble the ball again. But at the same time, do you want to be like draconian, like Bill Belichick, and just like, nope, you fumble the ball, you're out. You're out for the rest of the game. Like you can't do that. Teaches him a lesson.
Well, the other factor, which they brought up on the broadcast, was he was running angry and hard when he did come back in because.
Can we just say one thing? Because nobody's going to listen because
it's a terrible loss.
I don't like how you guys attribute your ideas to other people. Like, no, that's your idea, John. You don't have to say, oh, you heard it somewhere else. That's you. You remembered it. You're bringing it up. Like your synapses are firing. Like you're putting your own spin on that. That's you. Nate's always attributing things to places too. Like, I never even heard of that place, Nate.
I could just say, I could literally take a Sal Capaccio tweet or something and then just like that has like 100,000 likes and be like, say the same thing basically verbatim and just pretend like it's mine. That's pure Nate right there. Yeah. Nobody would know. Maybe like 10 people would know, but not the majority.
I'm sorry, John. Go ahead. Just don't sell yourself short.
Well, in that instance, they made a good point, so that's why I said that. But I guess it doesn't matter in the grand scheme, right?
Nothing does.
This doesn't matter in the grand scheme. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know why I follow sports. This is so dumb. I feel so bad.
Think about all the people that got so much more sleep tonight because they're not sports fans. Maybe they cleaned a few more dishes than we did. Maybe they, got lunch ready for the next day while we're watching the game. They got a nice night's sleep. We ended up,
Gonna feel like shit tomorrow.
Yep. tomorrow's gonna suck like normal.
The only saving grace from like a win-loss standpoint is I wasn't surprised that they lost. So
That's good.
Yeah,
that's okay, I guess. I mean, it doesn't make me feel better, but
they scored with way too much time. Why did they do that? Why did they score so quickly? I mean,
no, they should have. No, I think they should have scored even more quickly than they did. Because once they got to the 2-minute warning, then all bets were off. But if they scored when it was like 3.5 minutes still, right? I get that they were running it, which was good because they did need to score a touchdown. So, however they scored a touchdown was, you can't nitpick that part of it. But like, I mean, screw that though. All the stuff that happened earlier in the game, why weren't they doing that before?
Like running the ball against the worst run defense in the NFL.
Yeah, or running the ball the last 5 games. Like, it's a philosophy thing. It's been too little, too late every single game.
Too little, too late, and too many mistakes. I feel like that's if you were to put a theme on every game since the Dolphins game that they've lost. Too little, too late. Injuries, obviously, but then
I feel like that's everything.
but then turnovers. Just
Also play calling.
play calling that's a good one, Mike. How about coaching? Penalties.
But even the injuries. The Bills had 5 defensive starters out, and they played amazing. And the offense turned the ball over 4 times, plus the turnover downs in midfield. So it's like 5 turnovers, essentially. So 5 starters out, 5 turnovers, and the defense did amazing.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to the defense. Defense.
No. All we needed was one stop at the end.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the offense put them in.
But then we're like, oh, DeMar Hamlin's entering. That can't be good.
I said the same thing. I was like, well, it'd be great if you made a good play, but it's not good that our third string safeties in, or but I don't know. It was 20. What was it? What was the score?
24-22.
Yeah, defense. Yeah, 24 points for all those things that happened. 5 turnovers essentially, and 5 defensive starters out. And Von Miller not being 100%, so maybe 6, maybe essentially 6.
Not being 100%. Is that dude 20%?
Yeah.
Like I saw every play I saw him, it's like he didn't have arms. Like he never raised his hands, never reached out to. I don't know if you guys know. I was specifically watching him because Nate was like highlighted him like anybody would, like his revenge game. I just saw him like running around with his hands down on his sides, trailing the play.
Yep.
I didn't notice him doing that, but then I didn't notice him at all. So there goes. I mean, that's one in your favor, Mike, for that point. I was so happy when the Bills got back-to-back sacks that like Von Miller wasn't in on those plays. I'm like, good. Like he should. It's a critical time of the game. He should not be on the field right now.
Rousseau, Epinesa, Alvar had a really good game. Bernard had a good game. Like for being down 3 defensive backs had a good game.
Yeah.
Like defense is good, and I think McDermott called a good defensive game also.
So your wall
offense and special teams, on the other hand, they're terrible, both of them,
atrocious.
and they have been
atrocious. So if you were to do your wall of fame for this game, John, it sounds like you're giving it to the defense in this one. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Like you mentioned, the defensive linemen. They look good. There were times where I wish there was a little bit more pressure. I wish they would have had a spy earlier on Russell Wilson to stop. But
McDermott adjusted.
He did adjust.
And Dorian Williams became the spy, and he was, I would say, fairly effective.
Yeah. The time of possession thing was not in the Bills' favor. It was 37-22 for the Broncos. I was listening to Sal Capaccio, and I tweeted at him, but he never responded back.
What did we just say?
But he never responded back.
Well, no, I'm kind of like...
No, you had a thought.
No, I'm actually disagreeing with his thought.
Was what?
Okay. He was... I was listening to his Extra Point show on WGR, and he's like, what does time of possession matter? At the end of the game, it's just a number. And I'm like, I agree with that in a vacuum, but the reality is that your defense, it just means to me at least that your defense is just on the field for that much longer. And it just means that they're that much more gassed than they normally would be. Like they might have been able to hold off the Broncos on that last drive if the offense was able to sustain a little bit, like 5 minutes off the field. Are you telling me that like, and I've never played football, more than Pop Warner, right? I have no idea, right? Like I'm completely oblivious to this, but I would think if you had to play 5 minutes less in a game, you would be that much more ready. It's just like now, as soon as you play 15 minutes of football, like you're just gonna be tired no matter what. I don't think that's the case. I think if you have 5 minutes less, or 10 minutes less, or in this case, 17 minutes less of rest than the other team, then you're going to be gassed a lot more, no matter how many substitutions are in, right?
Yeah, I agree. Like it's like I was texting you guys. I was like, at some point, this isn't sustainable, and the defense is going to break.
And it did,
because like
at the end of the game,
5 turnovers essentially, and then like all the guys that are like, they did great, but they did as much as they could. It's the offense's fault and the special teams' fault this week, and over the course of the season, it's been mostly the offense's fault, even though special teams isn't doing great either. But
special teams. So you put that special teams. So I agree. Special teams has been terrible actually because they actually cost the Bills a game. You think that's on McDermott or the special teams coach for having too many men on the field? I feel like that's a special teams coach sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know that specific play, but it feels like that. But in general, they were terrible this game, and they haven't been good all season. So like part of me is looking at the general picture, right? Like how do we fix the team, right? Yeah. Defense has been fine despite crazy injuries to superstars, Milano, Trey White, and even like Benford is a starter, and and Daquan Jones. You saw the effect that Daquan Jones was out last year, how it affected the team when he was injured. So I think defense is fine, but the special teams has not been good, and the offense in particular, like they've been terrible. Like I get sometimes the defense has secured the offense, sometimes the offense has secured the defense, but the offense is not holding up its bargain. Not, like,
and the question is though, like now that sorry, go ahead.
No, it comes from the top, right? We all know Josh Allen is really good, right? Like
usually,
can anybody argue that Josh Allen's he had one bad interception, and maybe that fumble handoff thing
this week,
but like. There were drops by
drops.
Diggs and Davis and Kincaid. Like one of them led to an interception, and then
is any of that on him? Like throwing the ball is like on one play, the dude was like 5 yards from him and just like throws it as hard as he possibly can. But it makes me think of like a toddler running up to you with the ball.
He's been playing with like the Gabe Davis one. He's been playing with him for 4 years, every year in practice and in games. Like, shouldn't they be used to
that ball that was behind him?
Went through his hands.
He should have caught that.
He
should have caught that ball.
He should have caught it, but it wasn't a good throw.
And the Kincaid one and the Diggs one, there's at least 3 drops by 3 different receivers that should have been caught. If it hits you, if it hits you in the hand, it should be caught.
Yeah, whether it's behind you,
especially if it hits you in both hands, it should really be caught.
It went through his hands, didn't it?
Yeah,
he just didn't close it. It wasn't like it hit it and it was just.
It went right through his hands.
I think
both of them.
That's definitely on Davis. Sure, it could have been a little bit better, but
from a fixing the offense standpoint, right? Like, so they've had drop issues in the past, not just this game, but over the last couple of years. But I think the bigger issue is Dorsey. Not enough play action, not enough under center, too much shotgun,
not enough motion,
too much shotgun, empty backfield, especially on 3rd and 4th and short. I think he's got to go. Like, I've been giving him the benefit of the doubt for a year and a half, but like the last 4 or 5 games, like I'm done. This is it. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I'd say this is one of those games where I blame him even less than most games, but he's still.
But from an overall perspective, right? Like going back to the too little too late thing. Like, oh great, he put together a drive towards the end of the game. He ran the ball to Cook. Great. Too little too late.
Yeah, where was this? Where was this the whole entire game?
That didn't happen before.
Why are you saving your best stuff?
Josh Allen designed a run for a touchdown. That's fantastic. I haven't seen that in 5 games. Genius.
Why didn't they do that half? Yeah.
How do you fix a team? It's the offense. Offense is the issue. Dorsey's calling the plays. Plays don't look great. Even like when they work out, right? Like I mentioned before, the 2-point conversion, which I go either way I'm going for. It's good that they did at the time, but there was a poor play call. They got it. Great, but I wouldn't like shotgun on the 1-yard line.
What's his obsession with shotgun formation? Anyway, it's
and
immaterial.
And all the inside runs too. Like it worked out a little bit better this game, but like over the course, like this season, like all these like shotgun halfback draws or halfback dives and things up the middle, like they don't work as well, especially for Cook, who works better in open space. Like, why not run a sweep or a toss or something else? Or like, I just don't get it.
Like you said, I mean, this play action. Why this offensive line isn't built for running the ball is the problem. But at the same time, I feel like you could.
Well, I think they're better. They can do better now. Like, I think with McGovern and Osiris, they can do that. It's just that they're not calling the right plays.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, when we were now that the Bills aren't out of playoff contention, obviously, but it's not.
No, they're done.
It's not good.
It's over. They're done. They're not going to make playoffs, which might be fine because then they can fire Dorsey at the end of the year.
I think they could fire Dorsey even if they somehow scraped into the playoffs. Don't you? Don't you think they could still look at the season as a
if they were a one and done wild card 7th seed? Yeah, maybe.
I think that's exactly how it would go, wouldn't you? A one and done
Well,
wild card.
I don't know if they make it. Look at the schedule. They lost to the Patriots and the Broncos.
When you were
they got to play the Eagles. Like, we went through this before, right? Like all these other teams.
Yeah, I don't think they win against the Jets next week necessarily. I don't think that's.
I think they win against the Jets.
They might.
I'll take that.
They might split with the Patriots, so they might win one more game.
John says, "I want part of that bet."
I only
win more
say
than
that
one game.
I only say that because I'm going to that game, so I'm hoping. That at this point, I'm just going for the tailgate experience, and just like when we season,
you're way too reactionary.
Just like when we season tickets back in the day, right? Like, we didn't expect them to win any of the games. we still won every single week.
The Broncos have gotten a lot better since that 70-20 loss against the Dolphins.
And we've gotten a lot worse since that win against the Dolphins, right?
Yeah.
Like literally the week after the Broncos Dolphins game, we crushed the Dolphins and went in a different trajectory.
Yeah, when you talk about like how to fix this team, in the offseason we try to think of what are the biggest needs for the team and try to rank the needs in the team. And sure, you could definitely come up with some needs like, oh, they really need this, or they could use that. They could, this, like some sort of wide receiver 2 would be helpful. That's better than Gabe Davis for sure. I don't think that makes this current team. If you put that player in this current team, then that makes all the difference. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just a simple, if we had this, then we'd be fine. I think it's much deeper than that. I think it's much more nuanced, so that if it is, then it comes down to more coaching and schematics than we just need a player that can do this, right? Because we've said they've had those players. They've had Moss and Singletary. Moss and Singletary are doing absolutely fine without the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, the Bills have always had good running back. I mean, even in the drought, they've had, because they would always spend too much draft capital on running backs during the drought. But, like, that's never been a problem. Throughout their entire history, running backs have always been good for them.
They were good tonight.
Quarterback has always been an issue for them, so it's good that they have one.
Offensive line has always been an issue for the most part.
Yeah, I think I'd like to think that they're above average right now.
Yeah, I think they're about average, slightly above.
Like, if you're changing one thing on the entire team, is it Dorsey?
Yes, absolutely. That's the major thing that I change. And then, I mean, we've seen basically almost the same exact group look unstoppable under Dable. I mean, the only difference is an offensive lineman or two, and then one or two receiving weapons. Like, maybe, of course, that's half the offense, but they don't.
Yeah.
They still
the receiving weapons would always be like hand-me-downs, right? Like a John Brown or Cole Beasley. I mean, Cole Beasley,
Emmanuel Sanders.
But so now they got Kincaid, which should be good, but they're still not doing it.
Mike, is Ken Dorsey the one thing you would change if you could on this team? Or is it as simple as they're just snake bitten, like they're cursed? They just can't seem to get out of their own way. Like, I hate talking about the Madden curse because I don't think it's a real thing. I don't think curses in general are real, but I mean, is it just bad luck? Sometimes it's Murphy's Law, right? Where everything goes wrong. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. I feel like I think this was a perfect example of that game with the amount of turnovers they had, 12 men on the field for the missed field goal at the end. Like, it just all seems to be coming together.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of, as you say, things happening at the wrong times for them. Don't you think, to some extent, maybe we could count on regression to the mean. I don't know how many games you have to go to, but or go through.
The problem with the NFL
it's like season after season we see some team. Oh, they 1 year they won, right? They were 8-0 in one-score games, and then the next year they're 0-8. Like, I don't know. It seems like the Bills have just gotten unlucky a lot of the time.
Yeah, the problem is,
and like the transitive property doesn't work in the NFL, right? We could say, oh, this team beat that team, so this team should beat that team. We never know. Like, they could run the table, or they could lose out. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's not baseball or hockey where there's all these games. You only have 17 games, and that's it. So every game is super important.
Yeah,
I had like awesome time watching this game, like super high, super low. It was super.
Oh yeah, I had a great
really
time. I was
like, try not to enjoy process based, not outcome based, right? If every loss you want to kill yourself, there's no point, because 31 teams, you're going to be disappointed. As soon as you win, you got to start over. Like, Belichick is getting crushed, and he's been the most successful coach ever in history. Like, you cannot win. Like, you will eventually, you're going to get fired, or you're going to get taken off the field in a cart, or you're going to whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. He's getting crushed this year, but he did beat us, so
Yeah, I think to Mike's point, like that's kind of you kind of have to view these games as that, or you will absolutely 100% be disappointed.
But you have to, though. To my previous point, there's only so many games in the NFL.
Like 16 teams are upset. At least,
like every game is a large percentage of your schedule, especially when you're losing it to AFC opponents
nonstop. So the Bills are 5-5 now. Let's see where they fit in the in the standings.
Let me guess, they're in the hunt.
I don't think they're even in the hunt anymore. Let's see. In the conference, they are just above the Broncos. No, just kidding. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th worst. So that makes them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10th best in the AFC. So they're fighting for a playoff spot between, let's see, they're fighting for that wild card spot between the Texans, the Bengals, and the Colts, and the Raiders.
And they lost to the Bengals.
They beat the Raiders, so they have that. Dude, if you ever want to question the importance of coaching, I mean, just look at the Raiders, right? The Raiders were terrible. They hadn't scored more than 24 points in any game. And then in the game against the Giants, they scored 24 in the first half. It's just like they fired McDaniel, and all of a sudden, it's McDaniels. It's all of a sudden it's a different team. Like, coaching it's just that has that much of an effect. So all of a sudden, you take these same pieces, like, and let's say you give the Bills a different defensive coordinator. So you give them, maybe the Broncos defensive coordinator or something like that. Like, they could be a lot worse than Sean McDermott. Same thing on offense. You give the keys to Josh Allen to a coordinator that's subpar, and you get struggles. You get players that can't get open. You get Dapper Dan. That's what you end up with. Not my buddy.
I didn't even notice it, because I know we talked about it a while back, but it actually says Dapper Dan on the tag. And I didn't even think to look at it because it was so worn. But no, it says Dapper Dan right on the tag.
Does it? For those of you that didn't hear that podcast a few months ago, we literally we were talking about my buddy somehow. And John's like, I got one of those. And we're like, oh, cool, let's see it. And then it was kind of offline, except I kept recording. And we're like, that doesn't look like my buddy. And you're like, it's totally my buddy. You're like, I don't think so. And then after a few minutes of Googling, John learned how to use Google Lens. We found out it was a knockoff version by Play School called Dapper Dan. And it says it right there on the tag. This season for the Buffalo Bills is the Dapper Dan of seasons. This isn't a my buddy season for the Buffalo Bills. This is a Dapper Dan season for sure. But I'm not gonna let it upset me the rest of the week. I'll just know that I don't expect the playoffs now. We can finally put that to bed, right? Because if they're in the hunt and you really expect it, then you're going to be severely disappointed.
I think you guys are so defeatist, alarmist. Like, the playoffs are over when you're 500.
I think we're being realistic here. Let's be honest. Look at the state of the team.
Well, the Bills
forget the record, forget who they've lost to or who they've beaten. Just look at the eye test. They look terrible week in and week out.
I disagree.
They're never going to score enough points.
It's people throwing dirt at a wall. You and I making a projection. I guess we'll see.
The Bills entered the game against Denver holding a 48.8% chance to make the playoffs. Let's see. Of course, it doesn't say what happens if the Bills lose. If the Bills lost, the Bills have a 19% based on the New York Times playoff predictor. I wish I had an account. Does anyone have an account with the New York Times? 19% chance to make the playoffs. Okay.
No, I don't have an account with that.
I was able to refresh it before the thing said you can create your own account for $1 a month.
You got to right click and then print.
Is that what you have to do? Hold on, I'm gonna do that. Right click, print, loading
Let's do a
preview.
quick print screen before it goes to the thing.
Buffalo Bills lost to the Denver Broncos on Monday, dropping their playoff chances to 19%. So yeah, that's not defeatist, Mike. That's not alarmist. It's just those are the statistical. They went in with almost a 50% chance before tonight, and even with things going their way somewhat this past weekend, there's just 19% chance. It's not good. I think is that the, would you say that those are the odds during the drought? I feel like they were better odds during the drought, don't you?
No, yeah, because the NFC was better than the AFC during the drought.
Yeah, the AFC is so good now. Like all the up and coming,
it's even worse.
All the up and coming quarterbacks, all drafted out of the AFC. CJ Stroud, AFC quarterback.
I mean, the Bills could tank, but like, don't they have a lot of draft picks anyway? Like, don't they have like 9 or 10 draft picks?
They do have. They have one less because they traded for Rasul Douglas, which looked great again tonight. I thought it was just close to having a strip fumble. But
yeah, so I mean, it just comes down to like what fixes the team, and if it's not this year, if it's next year, how do you fix it? Is it offensive coordinator and maybe even special teams coordinator?
Yes, and yes.
Because neither have looked good.
No. Bills haven't had. You know what's disappointing? I know you've been talking a lot about special teams. It feels like the Bills spend a lot of money on special teams players, special teams specific players, doesn't it? They use like a lot of draft capital. It's like in the 4th or 5th round. Like, don't plan on this guy being a starter. Just plan on him being used for special teams, almost. You know, like the.
I mean, that's been happening since the 90s. Like they've always been like that. Like even during the drought. I don't know what other teams are like in that regard, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I don't know. You have to have specific players that can do that really well. So I don't know how much there is getting away from that, but obviously they haven't been doing it really well recently.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is this coaching staff, specifically McDermott, is going to take a good hard look at themselves and decide where they really need to make some changes, and not only just like, oh, fire this coach, fire that coach. It's like, you know, what are we doing wrong that's causing this? What's providing these opportunities for Josh Allen to get flustered? It's so funny because everyone, you know, Mike, you just said alarmist, defeatist. I don't necessarily gravitate towards these weird conspiracies, but people are like, oh, well, you know, Haley Steinfeld is like, you know, the reason, like Josh Allen clearly isn't concentrating on football, like he said in the press conference over the spring or whatever, when he said this is the most focused I've ever been. And then people were showing pictures of him on a golf cart at the Masters, you know, doing the match and, you know, dating Haley Steinfeld and the cover of Madden and these commercials for Verizon. And they're like, how could you be? I don't necessarily think that that's the case.
No, because that's any star quarterback. Like they have that, right?
I don't think that makes or breaks. But people are looking for reasons why Josh Allen isn't playing well. So now they're going into his personal life, you know, who he's dating, why that matters. I don't know.
Let me tell you what, though, like they got to figure something out because especially McDermott, because if this happens again next year, he could be on the hot seat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Someone was saying that Bean would be the one to fire him. And I'm like, I think McDermott has a straight line to Terry Pegula. I know that, you know, Bean makes a lot of personnel decisions, but I think that
I think they all work in concert, like, which is good.
Which is good,
right? But if this all happens again next year, and I don't know what's going to happen with the OC or special teams or anything else, but if let's say they miss the playoffs this year, and then next year they miss the playoffs or some combination of sneaking in 7th seed and losing, like McDermott could be in danger too.
I think that's a possibility next season because, I mean, this ownership, they signed both of them through 2027, I believe, with this latest contract extension, thinking that they'd be there for the new stadium. Like the owners clearly have the new stadium in mind, and they want it to be a competitive team. They have Josh Allen. Everything's going right for them. You don't want to market a team that's that's trending downward for future season ticket holders, right? Especially when they have to pay PSLs and all that. Business-wise, if the Bills don't pick it up next year, I'd say that they probably are in the hot seat. And I don't even know if it's a matter of like they make the playoffs, but they squeak in the hunt sort of fashion next season. I think that, anything other than winning your division might be seen as a loss to ownership potentially, like they used to do, like they have been doing so far.
Yeah, and I don't think I think Bean has been fine. Like I don't think, at least for the next couple of years, I think he's going to be okay. But I'm worried about the coaching staff in general at this point. Not McDermott this year, but maybe next year. But this year, definitely offensive and special teams coordinators. But they have to make those decisions. Like, what are they going to do? If they keep them, then that could be disastrous for McDermott.
Yeah, the Bills have the 10th playoff spot right now, so they would have to move ahead, obviously, a few spots to number 7, squeak in. They would need. I mean, they have the same record as the Texans, so it's just or they have one less loss than the Texans. The Texans had a bye, so yeah, a lot of things. So I mean, is there any Gettysburg of the game, John? I think you mentioned Gettysburg of the game earlier. I
think that went away with the loss, but it could have been that
the Tyron Johnson fumble recovery.
With the Courtland Sutton, with the terrible Russell Wilson pass, it was way too late thrown and way behind him. That could have been it because that led to the Bills' touchdown to tie it, and they could have won the game after that. But I don't know if there's anything.
Yeah, that led to the Bills catching up and tying the game at 15-15.
I wouldn't say there's a Gettysburg in this game. Not for Buffalo, at least, because they lost. So,
excuse me. I'll go over stats of the game real quick. Josh Allen, 15 for 26, 177 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, like we mentioned earlier. James Cook, 12 carries, 109 yards, and he had that 42-yard carry, which was his longest carry of the night. Latavius Murray, 9 carries for 68 yards, 1 touchdown, and then Josh Allen, 4 carries for 13 yards. Gabe Davis was the leading receiver of the night. 2 receptions on 6 targets for 56 yards. Dalton Kincaid was 5 receptions on 6 targets for 51 yards and 1 touchdown. Stephon Diggs, this was kind of surprising. 3 receptions on 5 targets for 34 yards. Diggs should have been involved a lot more into this game, don't you think? I mean, there's been games where he's gotten 12, 13 targets. Were they playing him that tough where he just couldn't make a play on the ball?
I like the idea of spreading the ball around more and not having to throw it to Diggs 20 times a game. He also dropped 1, too. So
yeah,
there's that.
Everyone was dropping him.
along with everybody else. But
yeah, Russell Wilson, 24 for 29, 193 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. People are saying Russell Wilson is cooked. I mean, you wouldn't know it tonight. Not that he looked spectacular by any means, but he didn't look bad. He looked very efficient when he had the ball. I mean, do you remember that shovel pass that he had to keep the drive going on 3rd and 6 or whatever? What a great play. He played lights out.
Yeah, in general, he played really well.
Javonte Williams leading rushers, 21 attempts for 79 yards. And then the leading receiver was Courtland Sutton, 8 receptions on 11 targets for 53 yards and 1 touchdown. And those are stats of the game brought to you by the Twin Spires Sportsbook at Del Lago. I mean, we did Wall of Fame. I mean, I don't know if it's worth even talking Wall of Shame because we put basically everyone but the defense on the Wall of Shame. I put Allen on there. I put Cook on there. But even though he had a really good game besides those 2 fumbles.
Dorsey, special teams, everything else.
Tyler Bass made a big play. Like you were saying the thing about Reed Ferguson, that was awesome, but it was 25, 30 yards after the catch. What good does that do? It's the same thing with Tyler Bass. Tyler Bass getting in there, 5'10", 180 pounds. Who gives a shit? It was 25 yards after the guy caught the punt.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. Oh yeah, long snapper
made
a huge tackle, whatever. But
He shouldn't have to.
I mean, it's like, why are we celebrating the guy getting like that far downfield? Like, right? It's just like these teams that like they're down by 28 points. Oh, I scored a touchdown. Oh, I'm all into it. And like that's great. You're still down by 3 touchdowns.
Like flexing on a first down catch after you're down
I
by
don't get
28
it.
points. Like, yeah. It's like you were not going to win tonight.
Yeah. Or like making a huge tackle being down by so many points. Like what? Like great tackle, but like let's Yeah, and you know what? Like the anti to that, when Allen scored that on the running touchdown to give the Bills the lead for the first time, like the offensive lineman came up to lift him up and everything, but you could see it in his face. He was not in the mood to celebrate. He was like all business at that point because he knew that they're like the way the game has gone and that they were in jeopardy of losing. So like
it's not time to celebrate.
I'll give Allen credit for that. Like I'm not in the mood to celebrate, and I get that.
He was all business, wasn't he? He was just like, okay, yep, all right, we got to do this again. This isn't good enough. This isn't going to win it for us or put us far enough that we feel comfortable with this lead.
Yep.
So I mean, we covered a lot in this one. Not to drag everyone down, but this was obviously a disappointing loss. It went to the final seconds. Bills couldn't get out of their own way in the end, of course. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. It's like nobody beats the Buffalo Bills like the Buffalo Bills, just shooting themselves in the foot. Just mistake after mistake, but it is what it is. So any final thoughts or anything else before we end this one, before we talk to everyone next week after the Jets game? No, that's a no for John, no for Mike. So thank you guys all for listening. Again, this episode is brought to you by the Twin Spires Sportsbook at Delago, where there's going to be plenty of other fun games to bet on. Luckily, if you listen to the preview podcast, we were talking about the Bills Broncos game. We didn't necessarily think that the Broncos would win, but we were thinking about taking the points, the Broncos and the points just to be safe, and that ended up being a good win. If you bet the money line on the Broncos, it was plus 310, so that's not that bad. I wouldn't have bet that, but I didn't like that game in general. But hey, so again, thank you to everyone who's listening. We're going to have plenty of more discussions about where this team is headed, where the Bills can improve, where they can look towards perhaps. I hate thinking about the draft in November. It's crazy to think that, and I'm not ready to. I think that there's still a small chance. So until the Bills lose what, 6 games or 7 games, I'm still going to hold on to hope. I think a 10-7 team makes the playoffs. So I give it 2 more losses before I really get down. So there's still a shot. It's just a tough schedule. It's just a really tough schedule. So, and this was one of the non-tough teams.
Anything can happen any week. I can't believe we're talking about this.
I never thought we'd get to this point.
Bills are 6.5 favorites against the Jets. Right the ship next week. Right back on track.
All right, signing off so that was Mike signing off. That's a good one. That's a good way to end it. Do you want to say go Bills or anything else, or?
Oh, I could. If you guys are done.
Is there anything else?
Belly aching. We could talk about the game. I don't want to talk about the draft and next year and all that hot garbage.
What else did you want to say? Sorry, I thought I said final thoughts. Go ahead.
You know what? Nah.
What a tease, man.
What do you want to talk about?
Something other than the Bills?
One thing that does give me pause is I feel like the window has shrunk in terms of success in the NFL. Because like when McDermott and Bean and Allen, like, okay, we got the core together, right? Like, oh, we got some time. But it's interesting to see like some people just come in and just take the league, like CJ Stroud, right? Like not just rookie of the year, but maybe like MVP level performances. And you're like, I mean, I really like our guys and like rolling with the team we got, but wow, definitely it's just indicative that everybody's constantly trying to improve, right? And like sometimes certainly the Bills feel like it's standing still, no doubt.
Yeah, I think that like the antithesis of it when you were mentioning that was like when Big Ben retired, Andrew Luck left the league, Tom Brady eventually retired. You're like, oh, the Bills like have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and then now you see CJ Stroud and all these other guys starting to appear, and you're like, man, like these guys there's more good talent coming in. It's not like it just stops. like you said, the window. It's not like it's just okay. We're not letting anyone else in. It's constant.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt. Guys just having real success real quick, and we're all just like, oh, we're gonna put it together. Allen's gonna put it together, but I mean, geez, Jalen Hurts has already been in the league 4 years. Tua's been 4 years, right? Like, geez, we talked about C.J. Stroud, but man, a lot of good. Sam Howell's lighting it up.
All right, let's not get carried away. Allen,
Brock Purdy,
Sam Howell, Josh Allen is still a top 3 quarterback. Sam Howell still sucks, right? It's going to be fine from that standpoint. It's coaching. That's where the gap is.
They need to bring in Jim Harbaugh. I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to.
It's play calling.
I think I agree with that. I think the Bills could find an offensive coordinator that's better than Brian Dable was. I don't think that's out of the realm. It just stinks that like the good offensive coordinators, they won't get a job with the Bills as an offensive coordinator. They want head coaching jobs, right?
Yeah, I mean, the other part of it is you're not going to find one in season, and you're going to have to wait till the end of the year. So it is what it is. As much as I hate that saying, but
well, to me, that's like worst case scenario is they let Dable stay, Dorsey stay, which is fine. Let Dorsey stay, but then like in the last 4 games, like they end up going like 8-9 or 9-8, and they just like torch everyone, and you're just like, wait, is he really a good coordinator then this whole time? Or if they stay status quo and let's say they finish 8-9, but the defense is still struggling, then
well, the schedule is not favorable. So like if he's doing it against those teams, then there's something to that.
But we always say the Bills lose the games they should win and wins the games they should lose. So maybe it's setting up perfectly.
I don't know. People said that in the 90s. Like, even in those teams, they play at the Colts level or whoever was in their division that was terrible at the time. I think it's one of those, like, any given Sunday things. Like, every team is good. And it's just
I agree.
One of those things.
And we've all said it at different points. But the fan base was crucifying Dable, like calling for his head week in and week out before he became amazing, the savior.
Yeah, and I disagreed with those people, just for the record. Like that, you can go back on the other podcasts. Like I was,
no one's going to go back and check. You can say whatever you can claim whatever you want.
Like one of you two, or maybe both of you, at times would put
nobody
would put Dable on the wall of shame, and I would actually put him on the wall of fame one of those games.
I do remember you kind of liking Dable when we were just like, what is he doing?
And I gave...
And you being like, oh, he's going to be the greatest head coach of all time.
Yeah, I don't know about that much.
For 1 year. 1 year only.
But I did, and I was kind of giving Dorsey the benefit of doubt for like a little over a year. But the last 4 or 5 games, I've turned over on Dorsey. I mean, yeah.
Is how you feel about Dorsey worse than you ever felt about Dable? It feels like it.
Yeah, I liked Dable. So, like...
You were always high on him even when people were low on him, so you never really got this low.
Right. And, like, Dorsey, like, at the very beginning, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt because I don't know anything about him. I gave him all of last year in, like, the first 4 games of this year, first 4 or 5 games of this year. And since then, it's like looking at those games and then even like expanding on it and like re-looking at the games from last year, it's like I don't think he's it. So
the Bills lost 5 games, all by a total of a touchdown or less, 1 score or less. All the games.
That's amazing.
I mean, look at all of last year, right? So like they only had like 3 or 4 losses in the regular season.
Well,
right?
I mean, you talk about them having 2 or 3 starters back.
But it was the same problem. It was like the offense was way too transparent. They just happened to play teams that they had an easier schedule last year, and they just happened to play teams that they were able to beat, and also because they had a great defense.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say the defense is the big thing.
They had a lot of close games last year, but they just happened to win them because of that.
Like they win tonight if they have Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano, Daquan Jones, probably, right? Like I think that's a fair assumption with those guys. Hopefully, you'd assume Benford, Hyde, yeah,
right. But you can't blame it on injuries though because they still played really good on defense. I
like how they were mentioning the Broncos. Oh, the Broncos are losing. Safety Kareem Jackson. I'm like, if this was any other year, the Bills would take advantage of a safety being out, right? Like a halfway decent safety. Like, let's throw it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like,
even during the drought, they would try that.
Yes, even during
Right?
the drought, they would try that.
Like Chan would be like, you know what? Maybe we'll throw at this guy.
Yeah.
Instead of running it with CJ Spiller. Like they would actually like try it at least, even if it wouldn't work.
The Bills are like, nah, let's just keep doing the game plan that we had. Like, let's not adjust to
Forget that we have a top 3 quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Let's test that safety that's not a starter normally. Let's test him. No. Let's not do that, even with Stephon Diggs over there. So yeah, I mean, with 5 games lost, all within a touchdown or less, all within 6 points or less, rather.
That's off. That's regression to the mean, man. We could win out.
Yeah, 22-16.
It was a couple of years ago where they lost a lot of games that were touchdown or less, right?
Yep.
And then we're talking about like, well, how many NFL games in general are lost by touchdown?
Last year they lost,
which is a lot, right? Like most games are close. Most games aren't blowouts. So like the whole touchdown or less thing, it's like, well, whatever, right?
They've won only 2 out of their 5 games by a touchdown or less because they had 3 blowouts.
I think what it really comes down to is the Bills suck.
Just unlucky. Just really unlucky this year. Along with...
It's more than luck. They just are not good. They're not good. The offense is not good, and the special teams is not good.
Anytime you want to blame Josh, I feel like he's part of that percentage. If you blame it like 20 or 30% on Josh or whatever, like a part of that percentage, no matter what you give him, is part of Dorsey's responsibility because he's not giving...
Dorsey is the largest percentage for the offense. For the team.
For the team,
like,
the offense in general.
This. The largest percentage of the issues on the entire Bills is Dorsey right now. I'm convinced. There's other blame to go around, but I think the largest percentage is Ken Dorsey. I love his passion, but he's not it.
No arguments here.
What do you think Diggs was pissed off about last year coming in and still coming into this year?
He supposedly said that. He supposedly said it wasn't that though. Like they asked him point blank, was it Dorsey?
He's gonna say
it's not Dorsey.
Yeah. He's not gonna say it, but
I like how you're just like, he did. I was like, well, he did. No, that doesn't count. We just dismiss it up. No, that couldn't be it. I agree with you, but he did say that. I mean, he could have answered it point blank in a different way. So as to leave it a little bit more open ended, well, this has been fun, obviously. Appreciate Mike and John coming on. We're recording this afterwards, so it's a little bit later. I mean, by the way, this isn't dropping on Buffalo Rumblings until Friday. So there's a possibility that someone's been fired by then. So this reaction will not make all the sense. We're talking about, special teams and offensive coordinator. Like they both might be gone. Maybe none of them are gone by this point. So we'll see what happens with that. Appreciate all you guys listening. Again, this episode is brought to you by the Twin Spires Sportsbook at Del Lago in Waterloo, New York. John, so signing off for John.
I don't have anything else to say.
Signing off for Mike.
Go Bills.
And for me, Nate, go Bills. Thank you guys all for listening, and we'll talk to you all again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.
Well, listen, the whole show is called Circling the Wagons. Say no more. I love it.
That was terrible.
This is a rough one.
You guys should just not watch anymore. Prolong your life.
Could you imagine doing this during the drought? Well, I guess it would be way more expected, right? Like, wouldn't feel like we're wasting talent, wasting Josh Allen, wasting the good defense. I mean, the defense was overachieving during the drought, so they were pretty good still. But like, decent run game, I guess. Like, there's always a little bit of hope still, but like nothing like this, right? You feel like you're in contention with the players they have on the roster now. But like back then, it was like, yeah, whatever, same old, same old.
So I put a poll on Twitter. Are you done with this team? Yes or no? And guess what? Most people selected.
Yeah, I'm done with this team.
72% said yes, they're done with this team.
Yeah. No, I mean, done could mean a lot of things. To me, it means I'm done for this year. Like they're not going to do it, right? Other people might be thinking, "Oh, I'm done with the Bills forever," or whatever. Like, I'm not one of those, but just because I'm not going to like bandwagon somebody else. I've been following the Bills for 40 years.
Bills defensive end Leonard Floyd walked out of the x-ray room. Linebacker Terrell Bernard walked in. Jeez.
I was actually surprised Bernard was playing because I just assumed they was going to be out. But even then, they still had 5 defensive starters out. Hyde, Benford, White, Milano, and Jones. Like, crazy.
Mike, you give up on your beard? Oh, man. I wanted to see how it was going to be this next weekend. I thought I noticed it last night, but I didn't say anything.
I wasn't going to say anything because I thought he was still growing it.
It's hard to tell if you don't stand close enough sometimes.
The video quality is not the best.
Yeah. Next year, give it 3 weeks, and if you don't like it after that, just give it 3 more weeks.
I always get like to the end of the month, and I think like, oh, should I keep growing the beard out or should I go back again? I always go back.
I have other things I'm devoting my time to this November.
Like what? Like what, Mike?
Just other causes I've found to devote.
To like not doing other things also though, right?
But sometimes it's like when you're not doing something, you think about it more. It's like if I tell you like don't think about a white polar bear.
I can't think about anything else but a white polar bear right now.
That almost makes it worse to not think about it. Try not to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Polar bear.
So you're saying that like November actually makes it worse? Like probably the traffic on certain sites is probably more than it's ever been. People are trying to limit it.